Trump says we'd like to improve on this. We'd like to add a few more stars. So he says, how about Canada, Greenland? You can throw Iceland in there. I know Icelandic people are very independent, but there's not many of them there, and they do need NATO protection. They have no army, by the way, in Iceland. They're completely protected by the United States. They're already influenced by the United States, and they need us. So they have no army. Is that great? So then they can say, this is what I notice about these green, left-wing, socialist, uber Marxist countries. They say they can afford to be talking about climate, renewable energy, and how low their carbon footprint is, and how egalitarian they are, and they're living under the benefits of somebody else who's paying for all of this. They didn't even build their own airports, by the way. We just went to Iceland, love it. We're going to take you back. By the way, we're going to take you back in the Northern European cruise. That's going to be one of the nicest cruises you've ever been on in your life. Iceland, Norway, I'll show you. Then we go to the Netherlands, and then we park at London, and we come home. You can have an extension in London if you want. So beautiful, beautiful countries, all strategic to American interests. We're going to find out about all this. But the airport that we land in, the international airport, was built by America. That's back in World War II. They're still using it. Built by America, us. The domestic airport, built by the British. The British invaded Iceland, and then we invaded them as well. So Americans don't know anything about this. Unless you stretch your horizon, get out, come out with me on these tours, you don't even know how these things are playing out in the end time. We invaded Iceland. Does anybody know this? And we built their airport, and then we left. We were very nice. We left because, we defeated the Nazis and we thought the threat is over. But we have these kind of like, we believe in Chinese, they say guanxi. I don't know what the English word is, but it's the reciprocity. That's the closest word. You think reciprocity, but after a generation, people forget. So now a lot of them hate America and hate Trump. And they don't realize they're still living under American protection. They have no army in Iceland. So they don't spend money on any of these things, and then they can spend money on their ideology. And this is how, the generation that's hardworking, conservative, ends up spoiling the next generation that feels entitled, and they don't realize who's paying and who's paved the way for their life of, comfort and luxury. So I know some Icelanders listening to this will not like it because you say, well, your power comes from geothermal. Listen, all this was new. You had the opportunity and the prosperity to do all this because that airport is there, and those roads that Americans built was put there in the first place. There's a big part to what America did for Iceland and Greenland. But they don't think about that now because in recent time, they had the luxury to tap into geothermal energy, and they're very energy independent. So let's talk about Greenland and Iceland, because the Lord sent me there, and He always sends me to places strategically and prophetically. And I'm beginning to piece it together. Why did the Lord send me there? It's clarified my whole worldview about what's going to come up next when the red horse, the red horse is already galloping, but when the red horse is evident to all. So Greenland is full of ice. Iceland has some greenery, but let's not exaggerate it. It is a lot of ice over there. Greenland, why do we care about Greenland? Greenland's the biggest island in the world. That's not a continent. Australia is the biggest island in the world, but we're a continent. So let's exempt that. Greenland is the biggest island in the world. I think it's 4 times the size of Texas. It's much bigger than Alaska. It's very important. It's got rare earth minerals, but it's more than that. Let me show you. So Greenland is a really big island with very few people. And the people there, they look Asian, by the way. They look Asian. I don't know if people realize that because people think that it's European, but it's actually full of Inuits. So there were several migrations. People came, walked across basically from Siberia, Mongolia. They walked across in about 4 different waves. And they made it, when there was a land bridge or an ice bridge, they made it to Greenland. And they settled there, and then there's some Europeans there, but mostly people look Asian in Greenland. They speak Greenlandic. It's an Asian Inuit language, okay? It's not a European language. And about, if you count all those people, in Nuxisimiut, Asiat, Ilulisat, all these words are not European words at all, you will come up to around 55,000, 56,000 people. So that's Greenland. Big island, very small population. It's near Iceland. So the history of this, I got it from going there, so I'm going to tell it to you. I hope you come with me to Iceland. Go to discoverchurch.online/tour. It's going to be, even the tour company that I'm working with says they want to go on this tour. It sounds like one of the best cruises that's ever been put together. And it's going to be a partner summit. We're going to meet together with Discover Ministry partners. We're going to have a great time. We're going to meet good people and be in good places, eat good food, and we're going to learn about prophecy together. So Iceland, how was it found? You've got Scandinavia. You've got Norway, then Sweden, then Finland. Right? The Lord sent me to Finland, last year, a year ago, a couple of years ago. They were all looking to expand. You know, the Western powers, they were all looking to colonize someone. And they tend to just go in the direction of wherever their country faces. So Finland went this way, and Sweden went down this way. But Norway, where are they going to go? So they looked to the sea. And they went out towards the sea, and they found Iceland, but it's full of ice, so they came back. I think by accident they went out. The Vikings went out. They do these raids. I think the word Viking literally means raiding. So the Vikings are raiders. And that's what they would do. They just go rape, pillage people, and they go out. Accidentally found Iceland again. Then they decided they didn't want to settle it. But then I think his name is Thor. A lot of Thors in Scandinavia. Thorvald Asvaldsen. Thorvald Asvaldsen. He committed murder in Norway. And so they exiled him to Iceland. So he goes off to Iceland and starts a colony there. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And he has a son named Eric the Red. And Eric the Red also commits murder in Iceland. And so Eric the Red got exiled to Greenland. So he finds, Greenland. He was sent out. He didn't mean to find Greenland, but he found it, named it Greenland. This happens in around, let's get the date right, 982 AD. So it's only 1,000 years ago. These countries were, just founded 1,000 years ago. Eric the Red then comes back to Iceland saying, hey, I found Greenland, really great place, great to live. Probably could have been true because the climate could have been warmer 1,000 years ago. And he goes back in 986, 4 years after he's been exiled for 4 years. He goes back to Iceland, convinces a bunch of Icelanders, let's go and populate Greenland. So they go and they settle in 2 places, and that's basically it. That area that you see, that southwest area of Greenland, that's where all the population is. So they found it from the first get-go, and they populated it. It's called the Western Settlement at the top, the Eastern Settlement at the bottom. But mysteriously, a lot of these Europeans simply just disappeared, and today's population remains mainly Inuit, okay? Mixed with some European blood, it's there. Now, Greenland, like Iceland, falls under the power of Denmark. And Iceland got its independence after World War II, but Greenland never did. So Greenland is really small. Again, imagine you're running a country that's so huge, the biggest island in the world with rare minerals, great resources, and very strategic in location. And you only got a population of, say, around 55, 56,000 people. So they're called an autonomous territory of the Kingdom of Denmark. So Denmark owns it, and yet they get to run themselves. And Denmark has been pumping money into Greenland. So Denmark basically loses money on Greenland. And America has attempted to purchase Greenland before. America has always known that Greenland is strategic militarily. And also now, with rare earth minerals being essential for electronics, China is interested in Greenland, and we know China is already inside. Just like Latin America, China is in Greenland right now. This is what Trump is talking about. This is what the red alert is about, and this is why it's called the red horse of the second seal of the apocalypse. We're about to see it happen in front of our eyes. The golden age of America is going to be a golden war. It's going to be a time of war. So many people don't know that America already has a space base. It's called PROPHETIC. In PROPHETIC, Greenland, America has a military space base there. What they're also finding is that they're rich in coal and natural gas and all these things that the world needs for energy. And so China, because Denmark is spending so much money on Greenland, China came in and said, hey, let us help you out. Will do. You know, everywhere they go, they want to build a road and belt initiative. They tried to do it in my former state, Victoria, where I pastored for over 20 years. And they tried to take over, and the politicians, they were obviously bought because they just gave all these contracts to Chinese people instead of local Australians. And Trump sent Mike Pompeo. And Mike Pompeo came to Australia, and when he left, he must have said one word, shut it down. He must have said, because that thing got canceled. That's how powerful America is. And this is why we're praying for America and for Donald Trump. For all the Christians out there who hate Trump in Europe and in Asia, I know so many people think, oh, if he starts a trade war with China, it's going to be bad for the Singapore economy. Can you think as a Christian? Can you think about freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of conscience before your pocketbook? Is that possible? Because we're living in the end time. Your money is going to evaporate. If you don't invest in the kingdom of God, if you don't give something to the kingdom of God, it's all going to go poof. So stop thinking about, well, what's the impact on my pocket if Trump has a trade war with China? Please, you know, those, especially, I know those in Singapore, so money-minded, so materialistic, you don't realize the fight for the spiritual freedom of the earth is on right now. And if there's no Trump, if it was Kamala and the World Economic Forum, China would take over your country. You'd be a vassal state of China. The social credit score, the digital oppression will come, and we'll go into the mark of the beast very quickly. Has the Bible not warned us Christians enough? You better put some investment in God's kingdom. You better save some of it and not spend it all on yourself. You better start thinking about how to make an impact on the lost souls of the world.